Hey everyone, happy Friday, happy Black Girl Freedom Week. It's been an incredible week with full of centering with stories about amazing people and centering Black girls and women this week. I am Scheherazade Tillet. I'm a co-founder of A Long Walk Home and an executive director as well. I'm also an artist, an art therapist, and a healer. I'm so excited to talk about this workshop today. It's around wellness and healing for Black girls. And so honored to have my posse, my beautiful, amazing leaders from A Long Walk Home to join me in this conversation. A Long Walk Home is an organization that I founded with my sister Salamisha Tillet. She's also a co-founder of the Black Girl Freedom Fund, and it's an art organization that uses arts to empower young people to end violence. Healing and wellness is in our DNA. As an artist, I photographed my sister's healing process as a survivor of sexual assault, and I made these photographs into a multimedia performance. And that's how Long Walk Home began, as a sister to another sister, celebrating and looking at healing. And so in 2009, we created the Girlfriends Leadership Institute in Chicago. And we everything that we knew from doing this work around healing and surviving and Black women's leadership, we gave to this younger generation to empower them to become leaders in their own community. And they're just brilliant. And I'm so excited to have you guys here today. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
So if you guys could introduce yourselves to everyone, that would be great.
I'm Azaria Baker. I've been a part of Girlfriends for maybe 3 years now. I joined the summer of my 8th grade year. And some of my art forms would be poetry, yoga, writing, waist beating, honestly, anything that I use to my beneficiaries, really.
And Azaria, I asked you also if you could I think just for setting the space and energy for today, if you could dedicate this talk or presentation to someone who really created and helped you with care and healing, if you could bring them their energy into this space.
I'd like to dedicate this talk to my mom because she's, for one, initially she maintains her energy in all situations, whether that be violent, chaotic, or loud. She makes sure that even if it isn't verbal, she stands her ground and knows who she is. And throughout my life, I feel like that's the one thing that I'm always trying to stay grounded to.
All right, thank you. And who do you want to pass it to? If you could pass it to one of our other speakers.
We can pass it to Ivy.
Hi, my name is Ivy, and I've been a part of Girlfriends for 3 years now. My art forms are painting and poetry, and when I go to college next year, I want to major in computer science. If I could dedicate this talk to one person, I would dedicate it to my therapist, Miss K, because she has helped me become more in touch with who I am and love myself more.
Thanks, Ivory. And I think Montana, if you could share who you are to the rest of the world.
For sure. I'm Montana Ross. My relationship with Girlfriends, specifically A Long Walk Home, goes back at least 5 years, if not more. I am an alumni. I was also fortunate enough to take part in SOARS, which is like stories of a rape survivor. So I was a dancer for that for a few years. And I also worked the summer program as well. Right now, I'm a graduate student trying to obtain my licensure and all that great stuff in counseling. And I also work for IMY as well. Oh, and my art form is dance. So, yeah.
And who would you like to bring into the space and the energy?
I would really like to bring in an artist that helped me a lot as far as like healing and starting my journey with healing and spirituality. And that would just be Nina Simone, honestly, with her art activism and just like her great strength and ability. And that wouldn't have been brought forth if it wasn't for Miss Tillet and Salamisha, of course.
Oh, wow. Okay. I love that, Nina Simone. And then I would like to dedicate, actually, it's going to be like two people. One, I think Salamisha, because if she didn't allow me on her healing journey, I don't think I would have discovered, and be able to pay it forward in so many kind of different ways. I've learned so much about what healing looked like by being able to really photograph and document and go on this journey with her. And I also would like to dedicate to all these co-founders of the Black Girl Freedom Fund and bring their energy. They have unconditionally loved and centered Black girls and fought for freedom and their justice. And so just honored to kind of just bring them their in our spaces and their impact that they have created. So I will actually begin with Azaria. Azaria, we want to kind of create this, you hear me talk about energy and space, and I think it's really important to kind of create the certain tone that we want for when we talk about wellness and healing. I think healing is is a spiritual thing, right? Like there's therapy and then there's healing, and that's the spiritual component. And so I wanted to kind of create that energy. I actually have my candles and I have lavender going on, just to really for me to create the space that I need to hold this form. But Azaria, I'm going to give you the mic because I would like you to help me create the energy by sharing a phenomenal poem that you wrote when you were 13, at the end of Girlfriends, and that was 2 years ago. And it's really, I think, is a love letter to Black girls and an ode to all the ode to all the girlfriends out there as well. And so, if you could bring in that energy of creativity to help us set this stage about talking about healing and wellness.
This is a poem to my girlfriends who believe that every Black girl can twerk, who give lessons in the art of shaking that ass and is always ready to stare down anyone who looks at their girlfriends the wrong way. This is a poem to my girlfriends who have gotten lost in a one-way hallway. This is a poem to my girlfriends who found me after I was the one that got lost in a one-way hallway. This is a poem to my girlfriends who sing and whop and write and curse and can period poo their way out of any situation. This is a poem to my girlfriends who have girlfriends, who inhale and exhale and downward dog, who when I say, here comes my anxiety, they say, oh dang, there goes mine too. I would like to write a poem to honor my girlfriends, to the ones who pushed pins into their skin, and to the ones who were forced into someone else's, to the ones who were God can sit like battle armor because they know that this world is a war pinned against them, to the ones who smile in the midst of a battle zone, and to those who carry the battle zone in their hearts, to the ones that always look for something to smile about with eyes that grow weary in their broken eyes and eyes afraid to close. And I am never afraid to open myself up to you because I know that your heart is the place I can exist in. I feel like the girls who have to take a long walk home deserve a poem. To the ones who have to change their route before they have to change the locks on their doors. To the ones who, when they smile, they can imagine their face on a milk carton. To the ones who will never make it to the milk carton, Black girls deserve a poem. A poem about how Black girls are like steel, like how they have been burned but not broken. A poem about their kinks and curls and edges and afros. A poem that says, nigga, nuck if you buck. A poem that says, I hope you know that schoolwork if you know them songs. A poem that says, come on, my babies. I don't feel like cursing at a white man today for y'all, but you know that everything in me would. A poem that shows how movement and shouting and downward dogs make a Black girl feel free. Say anything you please about a Black girl because part of our Black girl magic is doubling our afros as earmuffs, blocking out your intolerance. A poem for the Black girls whose tolerance for ignorance goes a little something like this. Miss me with that bull. This is a poem to the Black girls who have cried about being a Black girl, who filled their bodies with hate and envy and disgust and hate and envy and disgust and hate and envy and disgust. Breathe. Black girls need a body where they can feel safely vulnerable in, and in a world where those two words don't contradict each other, even if the only place is this poem. Black girls deserve a right to their bodies, a body that can call their property, not a political playground where their heartstrings will be pulled and pushed like children on swing sets. Black girls deserve to be children. I wanted to write a poem to my girlfriends. I wanted to write a poem to girls that are not broken but healing. I wanted to write a poem to girls who believe that crying is therapeutic. I wanted to write a poem to show just how at peace Black girls can be.
Whew. Ashe. Whoa. Every time you read that poem or say that poem, I get really teary-eyed. One, just like an awe of everything that you put into this piece. That you wrote this at 13, and you say everything I think that we have really embodied this whole week of Black Girl Freedom, in terms of what's in that piece, and brought us here today to talk about healing and wellness. So sorry, I thank you. I thank you for that. There's something kind of even more raw in this moment in the pandemic and being at your home, kind of hearing it. My mind goes back to like when we were all together, when you had that piece. And so I would like can you just talk a little bit about, about that piece and how you kind of wrote that?
It was really just like me processing and being in awe of what healing was. I feel like being in that girlfriend's retreat for the first time and experiencing girls who have been through hell and back and go through it every single day. It was me trying to process what healing was in the first place. And how do I do that? How do I go on that journey of allowing myself to be freed from all the things that life has thrown at me? And it was also a reaction to noticing and hearing all these stories from everybody and seeing how they still have the courage to smile and to love on others and to welcome new people into their lives every single day. So, in every sense, this is a love poem to Black girls.
Yeah, and the title is like "Ode to Black Girls." I mean, ode to the girlfriends. Yeah, and it really is pretty powerful and amazing. And I thank you for sharing that in this space and opening the space now. And there's like a lot in there. And one of my first questions for you, Azaria, you wrote that 2 years ago. We have had what a year. 2020 has impacted us all. But I think particularly what is even more silent is how it has impacted Black girls, right? And I haven't had, one of the things that I think one of the things I know we're going to come out with next month is a Black Girl report on COVID. Can you talk a little bit about what you think are the issues that are impacting Black girls?
One of the biggest things, especially for me right now, has been the way COVID has impacted our lives, our structure, and our families. During this pandemic right now, I am currently taking care of my mother who has just had a mini stroke and my 2-year-old niece while also continuing to go to school and to go to work and to do extracurriculars. And at the same time, you have to find time to love yourself or you just won't make it. So this entire experience has been continuously challenging. And I feel like it's something nobody talks about enough, that Black girls are at the structure of everything, that we take care of everybody and we love on everyone. But at the end of the day, you struggle to find time to love yourself and to give yourself those props. And what I really have had to learn throughout this experience is that I cannot be strong every day of the week. There has to be a time in between where I'm brutally honest with myself about how I'm feeling, how I'm doing, and where I allow myself to love myself just as I am. Not anything optimistic, not anything futuristic. I'm real with who I am and everything that I'm going through, and I love myself anyway. And that has been one of the biggest challenges that I'm continuously facing. Not only throughout COVID, I don't feel like it's gonna just last throughout then, but throughout the rest of my journey.
Yeah, I think just like everything else with COVID, it's shed light on things that were happening before, right? And even more so, the burden, I think, of caregiving has fallen a lot on Black girls. Like that's something, Azaria, that, I think that a lot of our young people are facing, where they are the ones helping their siblings tutor with virtual learning. We have young people that were when no one else wanted to work in nursing homes, they were being recruited to work in nursing homes, right? So there were the essential workers and the post office workers caring for loved ones when they not only sick but like with COVID and so I think what you're just touching on and exposing is talking about this invisible labor of like Black girls, and who's taking care of you guys, and the caregiver, and allowing yourself to be children, at that, right? Ivy, I think I want to ask you the same kind of question, and what are some things that you feel like that are impacting Black girls right now?
I think that a lack of mental health resources um, is the main thing that's impacting Black girls. Over the pandemic, I developed like a slight eating disorder, and I wasn't eating, and it just being in the house, it gave me time to be alone with my thoughts, and they were just so negative, and it turned into poor self-esteem and negative body image, and I would look in the mirror and I didn't like what I saw. So, I mean, I've been in therapy for 3 years, and it's helped me cope with my feelings, and it's given me a space to deal with trauma and see myself in a more positive light. And I think that if more girls had access to therapy, we could deal with low self esteem and self doubt and anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and many issues that girls have faced and continue to face. There are plenty of girls I have spoken to that are battling these issues unnoticed and alone.
Yeah, I think, Ivy, what you're just kind of talking about, it just really hits on some of the impact of what Azaria was talking about, being like a caregiver and the impact that's had on terms of the mental health, right? Like all of that has, and thank you for sharing your story with us, because I think that is something that also resonates a lot with what's happening with young people, and particularly with Black girls. I think there was something like when it first began, I interviewed all the girlfriends, and we did like some surveys, and almost 1 in 4 girls said that they had some kind of suicide or suicidal thoughts from the pandemic. And so that made me restructure everything, and was like figuring out how to get you guys through this, right? With like the proper mental health, and creating healing circles. And I know, Ivy, you led like tea time, and we did all these things and hired like a really amazing clinical psychologist to kind of work with you guys, right? To kind of get you guys through. So what you talked about, getting people more access is definitely needed. Montana, can you talk about, Ivory and Azaria just really talked about laying down the groundwork of what has been impacting Black girls. Can you talk about what has helped you care for yourself during this moment? Some tools that we could share with.
Sure.
Yeah.
So for me, and just like a lot of it stemmed, of course, from my involvement with the Long Walk Home, and a lot of it definitely from SOARS. But during COVID, for me, I took a bigger leap into my spirituality, and I started to really explore what it meant for me to learn about my ancestors, and what it meant for me to set up an altar, and what it meant for me to look into the Yoruba and Ifa religion, and just things of that nature. And honestly, kind of like going off of what Ivy was talking about, I took a healing therapeutic route as far as doing a lot of shadow work. So I really started to look into myself and really start to try to unpack traumas that I've had and some of the behaviors that I have, and just like really try to get to know myself more, to love myself more for where I am at in my journey, as well as where I'm at with survivorship. So I think that, on top of just seeing a huge influx, especially on social media, when it comes to like Black women and Black youth, especially like female oriented or female identifying, taking those steps back into spirituality and trying to build communities around that.
And what about you, Ivy and Azaria? What kind of things have helped you guys?
Just trying, for one, to become more knowledgeable about who I am and The one thing I'd like to remind everybody throughout this entire call is that we are Black girls. We are Black girls who are taking care of our families, working jobs and are going to school and trying to manage keeping mental sanity during the midst of a pandemic. So one of the biggest things that I feel like, initially, I feel like a lot of it was more so pressured on to me. As I said before, like my mom, she suffered a mini stroke, and already being in the pandemic, we can't go outside, she can't exercise. So that put me in charge of cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And now it's like, at first, it was like every meal was like a science project, me figuring out how much sodium is in some things. What about the sugar? And it took me on a journey of food healing, figuring out how to give nourishment to our bodies in more ways than one, and figuring out what that means and what that looks like. And it's been something that I preach through with my work, but once you apply it to your life, it's completely different. Like when we look at things in our refrigerator, and just educating her about how I want you to stay alive. And I feel like we don't consider it a lot because we're Black girls. That's not our responsibility to think about the weight of the world on our shoulders, but it is. And just more throughout this journey and this process, it's really been eye opening to me to realize that so much of our life goes into our food, and just like how much our food controls our lives. Like systematically, a lot of us aren't even in access with certain foods and like certain requirements for health. And this entire like journey and this process, which I'm still going on, it's made me think about, how do I get access to these foods? How do I become more knowledgeable about it? How do I feed and prepare it to my families? And how do I preach this to others to make sure they're living their lives right too?
Yeah, Zara, you just hit a lot in that little time that you just hit. And my whole thing is just wanting to protect you from all that you're facing right now, because you're so magical. Like, that for you to do that poem at 13, for you to have all these responsibilities, and also care for the community. Like, I know that in this midst of this pandemic, that you also like, there was a liquor store that was closed down, and that you with other young people transformed it into a fresh food market in a food desert area, right? So I'm just like, that in itself is caring, right? So you went from like caring at home to then caring in the community. And I think this is also what like people need to know about how much, what Black girls and how the responsibility, what they do with it, Do you want to say anything about that, Azaria?
Of course. I was having this conversation yesterday with my best friend, and our FaceTime calls are us venting about the struggles of being Black women and Black girls, growing into Black women. And one of the things I was talking about
Yeah.
was just like, I wish people could visibly see how much we do. Like, of course, I can say all day long my entire schedule, and I can say how stressful it is, but you will never feel the burden that I carry. And it's been, there's so much positive and there's so much light in it to know that I'm systematically changing people's lives, and that when people see me on the street, like they're clapping, like they're thanking me for starting this business or for doing this with my friends. But at the end of the day, I have to go home and take 3-hour tests and then worry about my niece and then worry about myself. And in the midst of all of this, as much as food has helped me to heal, I feel like now I'm at the point where, as food has helped me heal everybody else, I'm looking forward to heal myself. And that has been one of the biggest things as a Black girl, to not forget yourself. And that, it's alarming, because I have a checklist now in the morning where I'm like, okay, wake up, I get my niece up, I'm making sure the house is tidy. And then I have to have 30 minutes where I'm just focusing on myself, focusing on my body, focusing on my needs. And that's what I really want for Black girls, is to love yourself and to treat yourself with the same type of kindness you do everybody else.
Ivy, what about you? What has helped you? And you kind of mentioned it in talking about have being in therapy for 3 years, and really pushing mental health for folks out there. What other things have helped you in this time?
Well, like I said, like therapy has been a main one. So, personal therapy and group therapy once a week has been very helpful. Just getting a place to vent and say what I want to say and say what's going on and get advice on how to deal with it and how to move forward. Um, Also, what's been helpful is when I get out of school, I don't straight do my work. I watch a movie or take a shower or get a snack or get on the phone with my friends. As much as school is important, especially as a junior and having to prepare for college, it's also important to take some time for myself. And that's what I've been trying to do. Because in the beginning, it was school. I need all A's. I need good grades. I need good test scores. But at the same time, I need to take care of myself. So just every day, making sure I eat, shower, self care, and checking in with those around me, asking my friends if they ate, asking them how they're doing, and asking myself how I'm doing has been very helpful. Oh, and also like setting the tone, like in my room, making my bed and lighting incense and candles,
Mhm.
which is amazing, is very helpful also.
Yeah, you've been kind of like the go-to person, right? Like the own girlfriend therapist for a lot of the girls in our program. And so it's, one of the reasons why I've asked you to be in conversation with me, because not only have you really looked at like what self-care looks like for yourself and reached out in those kind of ways, but also people see you as the go-to person as well. So yeah, I'm excited to hear more and more. And I think you want to become a therapist too, right? Like that's something that you want to.
I would love to. It's computer science or it's
Oh,
therapy.
that's right. That's
Both
right.
are great.
The computer
Both can
science.
do so much
Yeah.
because I could do computer science and use my computer science as a way to draw more attention to the issues that people face. Like I was telling you about one of the programs I was in last summer, and I did sex trafficking because when we've been in the house, that's been a main issue also. So, I mean, it's helpful. Both
Wow.
are very good.
Great way to use your power, with the coding to really talk about something that's really important to Black girls, like that. Okay, Azaria, I want to ask you this question. I'm dying to ask you this question because actually in my phone I have you as Miss President. You know that, right? Like I call you Miss President. I was like Miss President because she's like we see her as like the president of the United States, right? Like our true president, who we want to be president. So the Black Girl Freedom Fund, our vision, our dream, and we will get there, is over 10 years to have $1 billion for Black girls, right? And I want to know what would you do with that? Like we kind of like lay down the land of like a lot of different things that are impacting Black girls. I want to hear from you. Like, what would you do with $1 billion?
If I had $1 billion, I'd listen to Black girls. I'd give them much more opportunities to have platforms like this and to focus on being Black girls. I mean, now, even as this pandemic has started, I feel like all of the time that was supposed to be my childhood, I was planning my childhood for later on in life and planning out times in my life where I wouldn't have to worry about all of my family and worry about providing for others and where I could just focus on myself. And that is my goal for Black girls, to be a Black girl and to love yourself and that be your only responsibility. So if I had $1 billion, Black girls would be in therapy, they'd be in dance classes, they'd have outlets, they'd have people that listen to them indefinitely. They wouldn't feel like a burden and they wouldn't have the weight of the world on them. If I had $1 billion, people would realize and recognize just how much Black girls and Black women carry our societies and how they're at the crown up for everybody else. And I'd let Black girls realize that it's okay to take a break and it's okay to not do everything and it's not your responsibility to.
Yeah. And that kind of gives me to my next question. Oh, what a vision, by the way, Azaria, because when you said all that, it made me think about freedom, right? Like that is like literally what we're trying to achieve. And this fund that we're created is called Black Girl Freedom Fund, right? And this whole week is about Black Girl Freedom Week. And so what you kind of just laid down was like how like what freedom will look like, right? And so I know, you know me guys, that I this is something I embody. This is something that I like to capture as an artist is freedom. We begin with girlfriends, like the first day or second day of girlfriends, I think at the orientation you guys talk about is like we like create a free space as much as we can, right? Because we know when we get outside that bubble or whatever that is, it's not that way. But we try to create like a space where we could just be ourselves. I do like these battles with like black girls, and I'm doing, you know, I'm Beyonce. Yeah, I'm gonna tell the world, guys. I do this Beyonce battle, right? In terms of like freedom, like I'm trying to get everybody like to, you know, in terms of the hierarchies and for us to be ourselves as staff, or the girlfriends to create the space through humor and dance and movement. And so that's what like freedom looks like to me, right? Like when I'm able to like laugh, when I'm able to like do play, like I say, play is the closest thing that we have to freedom as Black people, right? What does freedom look like for you? Montana or Ivy, if you guys could answer that.
Freedom to me looks like socializing and being around a big group of people, a small group of people, just another individual, or with yourself. Just socializing and enjoying a space, like how we do, like we embody our space, we enjoy our space, we listen to our music as loud as we want, we dance, we are just ourselves. So just being yourself and feeling yourself, doing whatever makes you happy is what freedom looks like to me.
To me, freedom
Mm-hmm.
is a couple of different, especially for like Black girls and Black women. Freedom is the ability to walk with pride and not worry of being over sexualized or over policed.
Mm-hmm.
Is to have dance studios or have dance leotards that cater to our nude skin of different shades. To me, it's also being free when you do want to seek out therapy, that those connotations and those fears and those hesitations of getting mental health or even exploring mental health isn't shadowed or covered with this film of, oh, that's not meant for you. You don't need it. That's not going to help you. And having that space to be open about it and be willing to explore it. To me, Black girl freedom is also having up-to-date research on us, having real concepts and terms that apply to us. Maybe it's time to get rid of, you know, humanist theory or, you know, like maybe it's time that we find a whole new theory in therapy that works just specifically for us. So to me, those are a lot of things that freedom looks like for me, for Black girls and Black women.
Ooh, okay. Okay. I mean, our people have spoken here today. Please listen to them. Montana, my question actually is around, you know, it is, these picked this week because of Toni Morrison's birthday and Audre Lorde's birthday. It's it's Black History Month, but those two women have really meant a lot to the freedom of Black people and specifically Black girls. And so I couldn't not like ask you this question about Audre Lorde as we're in the healing session and we're talking about wellness and healing. And this is like a quote that like when we begin the Girlfriends program, like we like give all the young people like these quotes of like Black feminists and talk about what is self-care and, you know, for yourself. And so the, Audre Lorde's quote that a lot of people use to talk about self-care, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. What does that mean, you think, for Black girls and young women? What is that to you?
I definitely think we touched on it a lot so far today.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and like Azaria definitely touched on this, and Ivy, of course, is that as a Black woman that we all are now or will become, we are either the homemakers, the caretakers, we are the leaders, the co-founders, we are the shield against harm. We are like the founders of movements, of organizations. We do all of these things under the sun, day in and day out. And fortunately, and also unfortunately, with that strength and with that power, we are also the first ones to get disrespected, to be the most disrespected in America. So in order for us to continue to create beautiful things such as Black Lives Matter, or to be a part of Say Her Name, and to create Me Too, or to be able, like Azaria, to be able to make food for an entire household while also going to school and going to work, we have to care for ourselves. We have to take that second out to recharge those batteries, to get that laughter, to get that sense of pleasure and just enjoyment in whatever we can do, because we constantly have to go. We don't get that chance to just stop. We are not fortunate enough to bask in that peace without the idea that we're sacrificing, or without the idea that we're not good enough to deserve that. So it's self-preservation, it's preservation of ourselves, it's self-compassion, it's self-love, it's being honest with ourselves that we are human. And we're not just this strong Black woman, like we are human. We are strong and we are also weak. We need assistance, we need guidance. And I think self-care just reminds us of that, while also continuing to show us we can do it. We're going to continue to do it. We just may need to take a second to pick ourselves up, but we're going to keep going because we know we have to, and not just for ourselves, but honestly for our entire race and for just people in general, because we are the leaders on a magnitude of issues that aren't just within Black womanhood or even LGBTQ. It's just a lot of things that we are a part of, and our intersection never ends and it never stops.
Thanks, Montana. I think I really love what you said, like we are human. And I think that not only, I think this country forgets that, as we have led so much, and I think that, one of our founders, Monique Morris, in her documentary Push Out, there's a beautiful quote that talks about like resilience for Black girls is a beauty and a curse, right? Like that this idea that we are resilient, and yes, we are, right? Like Azaria, you're doing the most amazing things, and yet you're like caring for the community. But yet you need help, right? Like we all need help. We all need like this thing, people to take care of us and to take care of ourselves. I love this, first of all. This is just so magical. And like, I am just only honored to be in conversation with you guys. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what they are.
I know, I'm putting you on the spot. How do you care for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, it's an ongoing thing. I think in this particular time and moment, we all had to kind of reevaluate what is our one, I think, like that what our cure, but also what our priorities are. One of the things I think that helps sustain me is like knowing what my priorities are, right? So as much as I like, I'm a workaholic, but like putting my priorities in terms of like family, right, is like really important to me. That gives me life, that gives me love, like being able to be my full purpose, like of something that, I love this, I love this work, right? Like, and being with like my family, like I'm here in New Jersey right now, like not in Chicago, like that was like a move that I made. And then I kind of been coming and going. And then I also think, I've been in therapy for like 10 years, right? And so like, I think I can only do this work about healing and talk about the therapy and hold these kind of spaces by having such long-term tools and like a self like reflection of myself a lot. And then last, I think like last couple of years, like I felt like I was a little lost with my own art form. And I think I like me photographing and photographing, what I'm photographing is like Black girl freedom moments, like whether it's in Carnival, whether it's you guys and you're in the wicker chair and celebrating who you are, whether it's prom, those things that kind of give me like such joy, and like it gives me a different perspective too, to then come and do this work with you guys, because I also am an artist and doing those kind of things. So, well, I thank you guys all. This has been an amazing time with you guys. It's been an amazing week. We have one more day of Black Girl Freedom Week is tomorrow. And I allow everyone to continue to log on and check out us at 1billionforblackgirls.org. Thank you.